Hello, and welcome to Happiness on Tap podcast, where guests dive deep into their vulnerable experiences that contribute to their happiness. I'm Leanne Herron, certified life and health coach and owner of Finding Resilience with Leanne. Thank you for joining us today for episode number 4, 3 financial tips for business owners, with special guest Kristin Wade, owner of Fiscal Bliss Financial Coaching.
Yep.
This episode is the first episode in my entrepreneur series. My husband and I have a passion for supporting local entrepreneurs and small businesses. So when I opened my business, I knew I wanted to contribute and continue to have this passion by supporting local businesses and entrepreneurs in our city and in our community. I met Kristin back in April when she reached out to me regarding becoming a referral partner. And even though Kristin and I are both money coaches, our coaching businesses and our backgrounds and our stories are very different. And I had just decided to start offering business after hours networking events, and Kristin had agreed to be my first guest presenter. And now here she is again, my first guest interview for my entrepreneur series. This series will include tips and tools from each entrepreneur on their struggles and obstacles and lessons learned along their way in their startup journey that will provide valuable information and help save you time and your sanity. So let's get started. Kristin worked as a registered nurse here in New Mexico for 8 years before stepping away from healthcare. Now she helps people manage their money so they can pay off their debt, budget effectively, and break the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. She is a firm believer that money should be a tool, not a burden. Kristin is a YNAB Certified Budget Coach and is earning her Accredited Financial Counselor AFC designation in 2023. Welcome, Kristin, and thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Leanne. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Oh, thank you so much. So, Kristin, would you please just tell us about your company and the services you provide?
Yeah, so I own Fiscal Bliss Financial Coaching, and I offer one-on-one financial coaching over Zoom. And so I work with clients to help with their unique financial needs. Everyone's different. So it can be setting up an effective budget, paying down their debt. Maybe they need some credit counseling, or maybe they don't have debt and everything's working, but it could be better. And so those are some of the services I offer.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, there is definitely people that don't always realize where they need help. And money is one of those key areas that sometimes we need an extra pair of eyes or just some firm guidance.
Yes.
How long have you been in business, Kristin?
So I am just about at the year mark of being in business, and that has been a really exciting transition for me. But I have been coaching my peers and my friends for at least the past 5 years.
That's wonderful. And I know your background came from nursing, and that's and we'll talk about what inspired you, but I love your story. So, if you could please share a little bit about what inspired you to pursue this profession.
So I have always loved personal finance. Like though healthcare was my background, I loved, working on my own budget, making the money happen so I could pay for trips in cash. Or, for example, I took 6 months maternity leave with my daughter unpaid and managed to budget that out so I would be able to pay my bills and reach my goals still. So it always was a fun challenge. And I noticed that even though nurses were educated, sometimes up to a master's degree, personal finance was an area where they were not literate generally. So we'd be sitting in the break room talking about their concerns with their credit score or their debt, or they are pregnant and they don't know what to do in terms of taking FMLA, or how they would even afford it with a due date looming. So I just began kind of coaching informally because I realized I had something to offer that I could really share for the people who weren't ready to walk into a bank, right? The people who were intimidated to go and tell a financial professional what their concerns were, and they didn't really need the services offered by traditional banking.
And yeah, that is absolutely so important. And I just want to touch real quick on, what you were saying about talking with other nurses or other people in the medical profession about pre-planning. And even, all of us, anyone who's had a child, you come in with a plan. You have a pregnancy plan or a delivery plan. And unfortunately, the world may throw you a curve, and you may not be ready for a baby who's born prematurely or may have medical conditions, and you haven't set aside money for those things because you were just planning on having a normal delivery and taking your baby home after the hospital.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think it helps, because you don't have those conversations with an OBGYN. They just want to
No.
check you out and, okay, you're going to have your baby on this day. There is no conversation about, like, are you ready for this? None of us are
Right.
ready for this. So
Right.
I think it is such a valuable thing that you are, helping new parents or just helping people who are planning for a baby or just regular financial help.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a big emergency, right? Like we also plan for the fun, expected things like annual trips and good things. So I try and flip the script. So the stigma around our money is we use it as a tool, like you had mentioned earlier, not something that we need to hide from.
Absolutely. So, Kristin, what would you like listeners to know about you before we get into some of your tips that'll help our listeners?
So I want them to know that I offer a non-judgmental, safe space to talk about your money. I'm not going to shame you if you show me your 87 Starbucks purchases, you don't get in trouble. I've had so many clients come to me like, I did something bad. And we flip the script. We switch it so that you are not attributing a decision to who you are as a person. So you come to me, you get a safe environment where we're really going to work on your needs, and then we can get you set up to go on to those next financial professionals.
And that is so very important. We all struggle with shame and judgment in our lives, and it will keep us from coming to people for help because we're shaming ourselves by those 97 purchases to Starbucks. Um, and, so it's really good to offer a safe space. I do as well at my studio. My studio is always a safe space free of judgment and shame. And I really want, with my coaching clients or my women's circle or people just come here for my events to know that this is a safe space. And that is such value that you can provide to people.
And I noticed that too. The first event that you invited me to speak at was so beautiful. It was an intimate event. We had about 10 or 15 people, but they felt comfortable in your space to start expressing their actual financial problems, which I wasn't expecting. I thought it'd be more of like a friend of mine said this, but people felt open because
Mhm.
of the beautiful studio you have created. And I hope your listeners get to see it someday.
Thank you so much, Kristin, and you as well. Your personality and your openness and everything you spoke about just really made everyone feel welcome.
Thank you.
Um, so could you give us, 1 to 3 wonderful tips? Actually, we named it three.
Yes, we got them.
3 tips for our listeners to help them save time and money and their sanity, or maybe to put a thought in their head about something that you encountered that you weren't expecting.
I would love to. So when you approached me about this topic, I was so excited because there are 1,000 resources for new business owners and you can get completely overwhelmed. So I spent time, money, and sanity on all of these things. And I would love to offer some shortcuts so people aren't getting just lost and then paralyzed by all of the choices. So my first tip is to plan for the downtimes. And so we all know, like as you're getting started in business, until you've really got a set clientele or a set sales plan, you have fluctuations. So, for example, if you sell art or products that are like gifts, you're going to have a really good time when it comes to October, November, December. People are buying holiday gifts,
Yeah.
right? That's like an easy win, a big windfall of money, theoretically. But what happens when February, March comes around? and people aren't purchasing those things, or they're trying to tighten up because they are paying off their credit cards from the holiday purchases. So look at your industry and see when the highs and lows are. And your bank account should have a little cushion so that if you're not expecting a lot of money in February, March, you can still keep the lights on.
That's a wonderful tip. And I know this is just kind of a side note for some of our local artists because it is something dear to my heart. The city is really working to provide space for local artists to have pop-ups that are indoor. So hopefully that'll help them not have to also have on top of the worry about money not coming in and being a steady income stream, but to have a place where they can hopefully be set up year round. But still, I think it is so valuable to teach our listeners or to give them tips about setting money aside, because I have seen lack of planning affect people in the short term and the long term.
And when you first start out, your finances are the business's finances, right? Like, because you pay yourself. And so if you don't know where your money is coming from, you need to either have like a backup plan, a little windfall. I do believe in emergency funds, but first, I believe you should have set amount of expenses set aside for at least 3 months. That's kind of where I get my clients going. So for my own business model, it's July right now. I have all of my different categories funded through October. So I know if I get $0 more, I can keep going through October.
That is wonderful, wonderful news and great tips. So what's another tip?
So this is kind of in the same vein, like you had mentioned, being caught off guard by things. If you are paying something annually, right, like your PO box, your business insurance, maybe your Zoom account, if you pay anything annually, don't let it sneak up on you. This is a true expense. So take the annual amount, see how much that is, and then the number of months until it is due, and then divide that number by the number of months. And that is the amount you should be putting away every month religiously, so that when, let's say, November comes up and your account is due, you can just pay it in full instead of scrambling or putting it on a credit card and losing sleep over it.
Yeah, that is a very valuable tip. And like I said, I've seen it happen to numerous new business owners that maybe haven't done their own accounting before or aren't working with a financial advisor or a finance coach. To have them set aside that money, they just think, oh, that's a year away. No problem.
Right.
I'm going to have lots of money coming in. So yeah, that is an absolute valuable tip.
Yeah. And
Thank
we
you
get
for
so
that.
excited when we get paid, right? We're like, ooh, I made $1,000. I made $1,000. No. Take your taxes out. This one everybody knows. Take your expenses out, and not just the monthly ones. We're really good at like those monthly things, but also setting aside some money. And then what's left over, that's what you actually make.
And one thing I do for myself is I have a spreadsheet that I look at every month. It has my annual and it has my budgeted amount monthly. And it also reminds me if there's things that I maybe purchased at the beginning of opening my business and now I've determined that I really didn't like it or I'm not using it. It reminds me that I need to cancel it before it auto renews. Um,
Yes.
and I've learned, I really watch that and I'll get it right up until like 2 weeks before it auto renews and cancels so that I'm getting the value, even though I may not be using it. Like I did that with Calm, ended up not liking it, but I paid for it for a year. So I hung on to it. I read their articles, but the program itself just didn't serve me and my purpose. So yeah, I look at those things on a regular basis every month and say, okay, am I using this? Am I not using this? So I can make good decisions down the road and know which ones I need to cancel.
Absolutely. And plus, when you see like, okay, Calm cost me $10 a month, if it's X number of dollars due here, is it really worth $10 a month for me? Am I using it that often? And so it helps you become more aware and intentionally spending, because we want to pay ourselves as much as we can, right? We want to limit how much we're dumping into the business, and we want to make sure we take home some money and not lose out on things that don't serve us.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So do you have any more tips, or I can't remember if we got to the last one
We have
there.
our last one. Yes. And
Okay.
so this one I think is pretty common. When you open your business, everybody wants your money and they're going to convince you that you need a social media manager, you need a bookkeeper, you need to buy QuickBooks, you need to buy this and that, you need to get this special Instagram course, and you must purchase your lead. No. Like, take a breath, because you are an easy target. You're very vulnerable because you
Absolutely.
want your baby to grow. You want your business to thrive. But, I've made mistakes, and I wouldn't even call them mistakes. I've made purchases where I'm like, I could have used my Canva Pro membership instead of paying for these templates, because it has all the same templates on Canva Pro, right? So there's $30 I lost out on, but I had to learn. And
Hmm.
so it was valuable. But take a step before you're purchasing something for your business, especially if it is like one of these obscure sites or like an Instagram person who's selling a course or a class. See exactly what you're going to get and see if you can do it on your own time. Not necessarily, right? Sometimes we need to delegate out. And how I have people frame it, if they've left a job recently, what was your hourly rate? And so if you made $40 an hour and this project is going to take you 4 hours to do yourself, is it worth $160 to have somebody else
Do
do it,
somebody
right? So we
else.
really break down the value of your time, not just, oh my gosh, I feel pressured to purchase this.
Absolutely. Again, another wonderful tip. One I've had to learn the same way, like you purchase something, it sounds too good to be true. Listen to those, because it usually is. I've been contacted by marketing companies, or a lot of marketing companies, like, we'll sell you ad space in our magazine, or you'll be the only life coach in the magazine for a year. So it always sounds great. Be smart. Google the company. Let them know you can't make a decision right now, that you need time to think about it. Use those standard objections that we, as coaches, don't like to hear, but it helps you give yourself time and space to really think about what you're going to do before you just commit and agree. And then you can't get out of it because you didn't really read the contract. And then now you can't cancel. You're going to lose a big chunk of the money. So those things are kind of lessons learned along the way. So that was the value that I really want to share with our listeners, is just be careful in your purchases, be mindful, um, ask for help. If it's something that seems too good to be true, reach out to somebody. Having a mentor is a valuable thing that we as new business owners really benefit from. And so I kind of want to cover that real quick before we get to where people can find you, um, on the topic of my entrepreneur series and what people can do to really support entrepreneurs and small businesses. You can buy for them. One of the most impactful ways you can support an entrepreneur is to buy from their business, whether it's a product or a service. Your purchases help boost their revenue, and it'll help keep them in business. Share their story. This is something that I love to do for my entrepreneur friends. We rely on word of mouth. So take a few minutes, give a review, share their story, forward it on social media. And that really helps them have a wider audience. Um, if you can, invest in their business. If you have the means, consider investing. This can provide necessary capital to help them scale their business. Um, Mentorship. This is also something I really enjoy, and want to continue to do more of, is helping entrepreneurs kind of get started. It was really hard figuring out what's the next step when you're trying to open the business, like what tax ID and in what order do you do them in. And so I really want to be that mentor for another person or other people in the community. So by sharing your knowledge and experience, you can really help a new entrepreneur navigate the challenges of starting a business. and attend their events. Supporting entrepreneurs goes a long way when you buy their services, but attend their events. Even just being there to support them makes all the difference in the world. It really does to me, and I appreciate my friends that show up to my events as well. Kristin, thank you so much for your wonderful tips, and I greatly appreciate your time. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you if they, are ready to sit down with a finance coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So I offer free 30-minute consultations because it takes a little bit before you can be vulnerable with somebody, right? You have to get to know them and feel out the services. So you can do that on my website. You can book with me. It's www.fiscal-bliss.com. The dash is in there. It'll be in the show notes that Leanne has. I'm also on social media. I offer a lot of fun and free resources there. So you can find me at Fiscal Bliss LLC on Instagram and Fiscal Bliss Financial Coaching on Facebook. And we have a lot of fun. I do stuff every Friday, some informational things. That's where I post some funny memes and some different like client reviews and testimonials. And it's a good time. So it'd be fun for your listeners to join me there.
And it really is. And I enjoy seeing all your videos that you do. Plus, the information that you share is very valuable to me as well, or somebody I may know, so I can pass on your information. So I greatly appreciate that. So everyone, thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this interview, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Finding Resilience with Leanne. I'm also on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and now Threads. You can find me, like I said, on my YouTube channel. This podcast will be on YouTube as well as Spotify. So please subscribe, like, follow, share. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a great day.